Do you like movies and games also? This and so much more, they all know. Vyse, Lotus and friends, welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 57, a podcast about our lives and love of pop culture. I am your host, Vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And OldManStompy.
And Pyro Jack Frost is fired yet again. Because that's what we have to say.
It's rough.
Fire for not playing Final Fantasy XIV with us again? I swear to God.
Old man grumpy.
He went out and did tasks in real life and tried to gain levels that way.
Mundane NPC errands for EXP.
He's mining for fish in real life.
You know, people do say that about me. Like my Final Fantasy playgroup does complain about this. Like when I go off and tell them I'm eating dinner or like running to the store or when I'm supposed to be playing with them. It's like, no, run this mundane shit with us.
It's pretty good.
That's part of the reason why I could I feel like I could never get into an MMO because I feel like I would feel like it was a job. If I wasn't hanging out with you guys and doing it. I would feel like, okay, well, now I have to go do this shit.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard enough to coordinate one get together every 3 months. It's like, now let's do this all the time with an MMO.
And my schedule is so scattered. It's hard to get a beat on me. So I always feel I would always feel guilty if I wasn't able to play. So
yeah, I had never really gotten into MMOs before I started playing Final Fantasy XIV. Of course, part of the reason I got into it was because Pyro said he was playing again. And as it turns out, he was the first of us amongst those who had previously played the game to sort of peel away from the game for other stuff. But it mattered a lot, that I had a group with Mr. Ryu and a couple of our other friends where we actually sit and hang out in Discord. It doesn't really matter. Mr. Ryu, he plays Tekken when we're not actively doing something in the game, and then he just sits in his character. So it doesn't quite feel like a job. It hasn't fallen over that cliff where it feels like a responsibility where I have to play yet. If it did, gotcha. I would probably be in the same boat as you. I already feel the draw of all these other games that I'm not playing because I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV. But in that sense, it was kind of the same as when I was playing Binding of Isaac, and that I had all these games and I would always want to play them all, but I would never really be able to make up my mind, and I'd just be like, well, let's just grind out a few more achievements in Binding of Isaac, and
yeah, I will admit that Binding of Isaac, especially with the Afterbirth Plus DLC, it really did start to feel like a job. When Afterbirth came out, it was like, oh, okay, more stuff to do, but Afterbirth DLC, it was do greed mode with everyone again, and I'm like, oh, really?
I feel like if I played an MMO with my girlfriend, and we were all playing, that would be better because it wouldn't be I kind of promised the guys I was playing the MMO tonight. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry, babe.
Yeah,
gotta go save the internet.
That's fair. I play with my wife, of course,
exactly.
And if she didn't play, then it would probably take a lot away from the enjoyment I was getting out of the game. Not that I don't play other games, habitually like DDR that my wife doesn't really partake in. But doing it as much as we've played Final Fantasy XIV in the last couple of months definitely plays into it. It matters a lot that we're playing together.
Absolutely. I think that would be a key thing for me in that instance. But
yep.
Without any further ado, what happened in this week, OldManStompy?
Well, I mean, that was a big one, right? Most of the time, I come home from work and I either take a nap or I play Final Fantasy with my friends. In the middle, in between breaks of raids and instances, I finished the first season of Kamen Rider, the whole first 98 episodes of the series.
Yeah.
I'll have more to say about this during the Refound podcast.
Only over 1,000 episodes to go.
Yeah, so I finished the first season. The Kamen Rider V3, the next season, actually is licensed for American release, so I might try to find the DVDs. That also means that finding the DVDs from the free internet store is harder than usual because it has an active copyright defender, so that's another good reason to go actually pick it up at a store. Otherwise, so in wrestling news... one of the last times I was on, I mentioned that the New Japan Pro Wrestling circuit was about to wrap up their G1 tournament, which is a 3-week round-robin tournament where they take 18 of their best wrestlers, pit them against 20 of their best wrestlers, pit them against each other in a round-robin tournament to decide who gets to challenge for a title of their choice at their version of WrestleMania, which is in January, and it kind of sets the road to their Wrestle Kingdom in motion, starting in August all the way up through January. Because I didn't know this when I first mentioned this on the podcast, but if you're the champion, or if you're the eventual winner, or if you hold any belt, and you lose during the G1 Climax, you have to defend your belt in the intervening time period between now and Wrestle Kingdom to every person that you lost to.
Oh man!
So it gives them like a lot of room to work in a whole bunch of different storylines. So
and then if they lose it, they can't keep their pants up. And I mean,
yeah, actually, funny story. So it's actually forbidden. It's forbidden on WWF television to say the word belt in reference to a championship title belt. You have to say championship because apparently it makes like Vince McMahon really angry, and he's like, a belt is something you buy at a store. These are championships, goddammit.
You know what that sounds like is Arrested Development, where Job just refuses to hear magic tricks ever referred to as tricks. Tricks are something a whore does for money. Like, these are illusions. Just
turning illusions on the street.
Yeah, it turns out that every time he hears the word tricks ever, he turns into illusions, which is hilarious.
Nice. There are a lot of, like, there's an entire playbook of things that announcers are or are not allowed to say when referencing things they're describing on WWF television. I know, Lotus, I sent you an example of this because apparently during the last pay-per-view they had this thing called the Punjabi prison match, which is like the most convoluted structure I've ever seen in WWF. It's this giant bamboo thing that has like doors on the inside, and the doors, you can ask for them to be open, but they're only open for 60 seconds, and then they lock them shut after that. You have to climb out of the inner one, then you have to climb out of the outer one, and also the whole thing is called the Punjabi prison, which is like pretty racist in the first place.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
And of course, he's wrestling an actual a wrestler of Punjabi descent who's currently the champion, and like his lineage is part of his character, but still, like, the Punjabi prison, like that's messed up.
Yeah.
Anyway, they never actually said Punjabi prison after, like, the start. They referred to it as a structure 64 times. And on ESPN, they actually interviewed the announcers.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I heard about this,
I sent you this video that they just like have this edited video of them saying the word structure 64 consecutive times.
That was
like,
pretty
we
funny.
didn't say that.
And it's funny because it's not like the Daily Show where they'd just be like, structure. Like, they actually went through all 64 times. So, like, the word starts to lose its meaning after a while. You just hear it so many times. It's just like, oh, God.
Yeah. So New Japan Pro Wrestling does not have this problem. The English announcers are not as talented as the US announcers, but they don't have the same kinds of restrictions on them, and of course also the storytelling. Like, what's going on in New Japan right now might be the single greatest year of wrestling in history. So I know Vyse, you tried to get into it, and I guess the match.
I just caught a bad match.
Yeah, I mean. So the structure of these structure. So the G1 Climax is like 19 days, I want to say, because it's 2 blocks of 10 guys. They wrestle 9 times each. They wrestle each against the other 9 guys, so there's 18 days of the tournament, plus a 19th day where the winners of the 2 blocks face off against each other. And all the singles action is loaded at the end of the card. At the start, they have all these like tag matches that are like practically meaningless. They just serve to get all the other wrestlers who are in the other block on the card to keep them warm, to keep their storylines moving along. So there's a ridiculous amount of wrestling, and the tag matches themselves are like not great. You know, they're not meant to be great. They're just warm-up acts. But even the G1 matches, they really run the gamut. There's a guy, Yano Toru, who specializes in just dirty finishes and like cheap tricks, and all of his matches wind up devolving into like his attempts. Like, so in his match against Kenny Omega, Omega, he's an American wrestler, and he doesn't speak particularly great Japanese, although he's learned quite a lot in the years he's been over there. But he's also like the top guy, the top American wrestler in Japan right now. So it's hard to believe he would lose to a guy named Yano Toru. So Toro walks up to him and he gives him a copy of his DVD, and he starts yelling at him in the middle of the ring in English, like, "This is for you. Very good DVD."
Yes.
And then like Omega's like, what the fuck is this? Is this some kind of trick? And he refuses to take the DVD. And so he gets all so Yano gets all upset and he tries to give it to the ref and he's like, I just want to give him the DVD. Why doesn't he want it? This is my DVD. It's a present for him.
That's amazing.
And so the referee's like, no, take the DVD. This is like the bell is already rung. The match has started. Like, so the ref is like, just take the DVD already. And so Omega, he takes the DVD, he opens it up, and it's full of sand. And Yano, he just like whacks it and like
what an asshole!
Sand, and just grabs him and tries to roll him up. Like that's every single match that he has is like that. And the match ended with them like somehow getting like roped up so their legs were tied together.
What?
And they were just like hopping around like idiots. Like, this is Kenny Omega, the best American wrestler, and here he is like hogtied in the middle of the ring with Yano Toru.
All right.
Like, how did this even happen? It got like 0.5 stars from Dave Meltzer.
It sounds amazing.
It looks hilarious. So yeah. So Omega, he actually won his block, and he wound up losing in the finals to a wrestler by the name of Tetsuya Naito, who is notorious for... So he's the head of what's called Los Ingobernables de Japón. So I'm sure I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, but he was a face. He was like the most bland and uninteresting wrestler in all of New Japan, who was also considered a top guy. The fans were just not taking to him. He won the G1, I think, 4 years ago. And the fans actually voted to not have his match, even though it was for the main title, as the main event. And in storyline, like, he was really offended by this. They actually sent him on an excursion to Mexico to learn Lucha Libre. And he came back with this new, like, heel persona where he, like, doesn't give a shit about Japanese values at all because he's so mad the fans didn't want him.
Wow.
So, like, when he comes down to the ring, he takes, like, a ridiculously long time to take all of his clothes off and get his trunks on, and it just takes forever. It's so funny.
So he's wasting other people's time, which is
he's just
a very bad thing in Japan, I would imagine, right?
So profoundly disrespectful, like that, and he spent like years doing this. And last year he won the title. And he won the title like right after Wrestle Kingdom, before the G1. He lost it before the G1 started, but he had it for a couple of months. And he went to a press conference for like his title defense, and they had the belt, the championship, on a little like stand, and he just walks up to it and he just like knocks the stand over.
Oh.
And he puts like his hat on the stand.
What a dick!
And then, like, leading up to Wrestle Kingdom, he won the next level belt, the Intercontinental Championship. And when he would go to the ring, he would literally just like slam it into the ring post and then like kick it, and, like throw it. Like, it was falling apart.
It gets to a point where like you can't even be getting pleasure out of this. Like, you're just doing it because you're supposed to be a bad guy.
Oh, he seems like he's having all kinds of fun.
Okay.
Can you imagine if your job paid you to just walk into your classroom, just like pick up the students' desks and like throw them out the window? Like,
that would be
just
pretty
to
funny.
Be a dick for
or
other
like
people's enjoyment.
Or yeah, you know how like if the teacher doesn't show up after, I forgot what it was, 15 or 20 minutes. Yeah, 50. Like you're allowed to just leave because at that point it's on the teacher. Like every day I just walk in at like 14:59. Like, oh, it turns out I'm here. God damn it. Yeah.
Well, speaking of this kind of stuff, OldManStompy, I was wondering if you had gotten a chance to play the new Fire Pro Wrestling game on Steam yet.
Oh, no, I haven't. I never really played any wrestling video games. Like, I don't play sports video games in general. I'd heard good things about it, and I was really excited to see that it was back.
It's okay.
Ha, sports, yes. It's all sports entertainment. It's kind of the same reason, like, I never got into sports manga or sports anime. Like, I never watched Slam Dunk. I never watched Kuroko no Basket. One-offs. What else? Ice Shield 21, Prince of Tennis.
Prince of Tennis, dude. Prince of Tennis is hilarious.
No, I mean, I'm sure they're great. It's just not to my taste.
No, but I mean, I haven't even watched the episodes, but like, there's a clip, you might have even seen it before, because it's too stupid, from the Prince of Tennis, I think it was the movie, where someone does like such an amazing serve. Like, it does one of those metaphorical things where it's like, you know, the serve was so great, like, you know, like it's something like, you know, like the ball turns into a meteor, you know, stuff like that, but it just, like, it shows the guy setting up the serve, and like, it just zooms out, it goes to space, and it shows the asteroid that, like, hit the earth, and it shows all the dinosaurs dying and this big explosion coming by, and then it goes back to real life where it was just a really fast serve. The guy at the other end of the net was just
a
like,
rubber ball.
Oh, and he just like stares like he was so awestruck. It's the funniest goddamn thing, because I see what they're doing, but it's like, come on, like it's hysterical.
If I'm not mistaken, like somebody even goes like literally Super Saiyan. And,
I think there was something like that, yeah, where he goes like devil mode or demon mode or something stupid. And I remember, like, I think one of our friends, maybe it was either Perry or Mr. Ryu, pointed out, like, there was some panel where somebody in the audience is watching a match, and they're like, are they somehow playing with 4 balls at once? Are they that good? No, it's just one ball really fast. It's like, shut up. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I brought that up is I know that the newest Fire Pro Wrestling on Steam is supposedly like really, really good, and they have like people have designed every wrestler real wrestler you could think of with the create a character mode. So like you could download like whole packs of people that look exactly the way they're supposed to be and have the kind of moves that they're supposed to have and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I remember this being a big deal in the newer WWE games too. Like that they have all kinds of moves that exist, like the Burning Hammer, the finishing move of Kobashi Kenta, like one of the most famous Japanese wrestlers, is basically banned in the WWF, but they always put it in the games so you can make the character.
Yeah. Well, most of those games are made in Japan anyway, so
yeah, it's Aki, right, the developer for Fire Pro Wrestling.
Well, it's Yuke's.
Okay.
Yuke's makes the WWE games, and Human Entertainment made the Fire Pro Wrestling games. Aki is actually no longer around. The company that makes Fire Pro right now is basically descendant of Human Entertainment.
Human, really? That's an obscure company at this point.
Yeah, it's the company that birthed Suda 51 essentially, and
yeah, they did the original Super Famicom clock tower.
Well, a Human also Suda 51 got his start making Fire Pro Wrestling storylines. Yeah. He's most famous for making a storyline where the main character commits suicide at the end of the game in a very shocking manner.
Jesus.
I was gonna say that explains nothing about Suda 51, but then you went ahead and and gave us the link.
No, he's been the way he is for as long as he's been in video games. Like he's garnered attention through weird storylines and stuff. He even made a game that was completely told through sound.
Cool.
It was supposed to be like a visual novel, but it was called a sound novel.
An audio novel.
Yeah.
A visual novel on tape.
He wanted deaf people to be able to play a game.
Cool.
So, or wanted
blind people
rather, be able to play a game. So, but anyway, sorry about that.
That's pretty cool. No, actually, that would about wrap up the G1. So, of course, I'll be happy to come back and talk about the developing storylines as they continue. The other footnote is that there's a WWE jobber, used to be called CJ Parker. When he was with WWF, he was his gimmick was that he was an environmentalist, and he would come out with these signs picketing the WWF, and he would like tape up the ring and say like, "You can't come in here, don't spoil the environment of the ring or whatever." And he was like, he was a loser in WWF. He was a decently talented wrestler, but he never really won anything of note. And so he left, and he won an excursion to New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he's known as Juice Robinson. Not that it has any relation to his old name. But he seems to be having the time of his life. He actually was one of the guys who beat Kenny Omega during the G1. Oh, wow. So that was like his big signature upset victory. And then at the end of the tournament, so like, you know how in American television you can say like the British people are allowed to say like bloody hell or core blimey, even though the English equivalents would never be allowed to be said before like 8 o'clock before like 8 or 10 or only on HBO.
Sure. Yeah.
Like
bullocks. So like for instance, you can say bullocks all you want on American television at any time of day.
Right.
You can't say balls straight up in American television.
Yeah, so Juice Robinson, he gives all his promos in English because he doesn't speak Japanese particularly well yet, and he swears like crazy, and it really adds a lot of emphasis to his promos. And at the end, like, I haven't actually seen this yet, but apparently I was told that when they asked him what he was going to do to celebrate like his accomplishments in the G1, he's like, well, I'm going to go and drink some Sapporo, and then I'm going to go get balls deep in some beautiful Japanese women.
Jesus.
Like, holy...
You would never hear that ever on American TV.
Well, some people think that it's a reference to Brock Lesnar. That they asked him why. I can't remember the exact company right off the top of my head, but I know they asked him like, why do you accept sponsorships from Bud Light? And he would say like, well, Coors doesn't pay me enough. And then they would ask him like, what are you going to do after this fight? And he's like, well, I'm going to go home and I get on top of my wife. Was like, what, you got a problem with that?
Wow.
So like, and like that is on American television, you know, back when he was fighting for UFC.
Okay.
So it's definitely not something you'd expect to see in the American equivalent of WWF.
Yeah.
But sure. It is in pay-per-view.
By the way, speaking of which, what did you say the guy's original name was? CJ what?
CJ Parker.
Parker. The funny thing, you say he was an environmentalist. There's a bit of irony there, because if he was considered a loser in the WWF, he might have done really well in the WWF.
Oh, yeah.
Pandas.
So yeah, anyway, moving on.
Just for anyone who doesn't know, the WWF is the World Wrestling Federation, but also the World Wildlife something fund?
World Wildlife Fund, yeah. And that's why it's the WWE now.
Yeah.
I saw the Great Panda Adventure.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So yeah, when the WWF, they filed for a trademark, they got into a battle with the real WWF. And the agreement was that they would be able to use it for wrestling as long as they didn't sell it anywhere outside of the U.S. And now they're an international company. That seems very short-sighted of them to make that kind of agreement, so they had to change their name to WWE, which stands for World Wrestling Entertainment. It is literally sports entertainment.
Yeah, that happened when we were like in middle school or something. That happened like 96 or so.
Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah, that's all I've got for this week. The only other footnote I would have is that after our discussion about the Dark Tower and Recon last week, I started reading The Stand.
That is one of his best books.
Yeah. It's excellent. I kind of wanted to read it because I wanted to start with the first Randall Flagg book. And I was also familiar with The Stand because I'd watched the TV miniseries previously.
Was that the first Flagg book?
With.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh, okay. By the way, I'm just curious. Are you reading the unabridged version or the regular version?
I'm sure
it's quite difficult to get a hold of the original unabridged version.
All right, because I was gonna say I read the abridged version, but it's like I just love the idea. Like, can you believe that there's an even longer version?
Yeah, I mean, the first 450 or so pages, they have an incredibly high velocity. I finished them in like a day and a half. Like
it's snappy.
It's some book. If you read that far, did you get to the part with the tunnel?
Yes.
That was one of my favorite parts of the book. Yeah, the Lincoln Tunnel.
The Lincoln Tunnel, yeah, that was excellent. In general, the second, like, 2/3 of the book, it almost feels like naive by today's standards to have like such a straightforward story where like the forces of good and the forces of evil are like coalescing around like two icons to go have a holy war.
Pretty much, yeah.
But it also like almost feels like an entire separate book, you know.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm about 800 pages in out of 1,300. I've spent most of my free time not playing Final Fantasy, and also while playing Final Fantasy, waiting for instances, like reading the book. I have it on my phone on my Kindle app. Kindle is like the greatest thing I've ever come across for somebody who likes to read a lot. Like I was surprised by how easy it is to digest an entire page in a very short period of time, flipping pages on a Kindle. It's actually fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah,
really...
I've been resisting it, but more and more I think about it, the more and more I think I might like the idea of not having all these books around.
Yeah, like I'm attached to the smell of books and like the feel of books.
I love that.
Like, so I'm not opposed to buying a book once in a while. Plus, not everything is out in the Kindle anyway. But
sure.
But you know, it also gives me something to do when I'm on the subway and I have cell phone reception. Mm-hmm. Like, it's nice.
Absolutely.
Yep. So yeah, I guess I'll talk more about that when I finish it, and I'll decide what I want to read next. But otherwise, Lotus, how are you this week?
Why, fine, thank you. So Vyse. No, so basically, I got a few things done here. First of all, I mean, I beat the game a long time ago, and I've been uploading it, but I finally finished editing the Let's Play installments of Skies of Arcadia, like last night. Like
Awesome.
It is such a process. So it just feels good to have finished that. So now, God forbid, I can actually, after taking a little bit of a break from editing, start getting on the Let's Play that I did with OldManStompy and Minty Mitts that they've been waiting for quite some time. Because Inside, at this point, has been, at the time of this recording, this is on the Sunday, but Inside has been fully uploaded to Patreon. It'll have finished going public Wednesday? It's Tuesday or Wednesday, but it's going to get finished relatively soon. It's only 6 installments long, so we're moving along with that. And eventually I want to, edit the Undertale Let's Play we did, start putting that up, because that was definitely a good time. So, especially with, OldManStompy's occasional shitting on me, because it's just, that's just our dynamic.
Occasional.
It's just what OldManStompy does.
It's the same thing with Mr. Ryu. Like, every once in a while, he'll just shit on me during a Let's Play, and it's like, okay. Like, when we did Little Nightmares, he's just like, really, Lotus? It's just like, oh no.
So when I was playing Binding of Isaac, there's a fortune you can get from the fortune machine that just says, like, you are playing the game wrong, give the controller to me.
Really? That's great.
Like, that is, we were asked to be part of, or, like, I volunteered to be one of the co-commentators on Lotus's Undertale LP, because I had already played the game, and Mitz and I had digested it. Like, we'd watched several LPs of it with all the routes.
You guys knew it inside out.
We knew the game pretty inside out. So, like, it's pretty hard to watch someone play a game that they've never played before, which is designed to, like, evoke so many blind reactions as Undertale. When you already know what's going to happen. So, like, part of it's on us. Like, we were bad. Bad hosts.
I actually thought but I mean, for the shitting on me, that's just how that's going to be. But, like, I thought you were really good at directing me, because the thing is, like, even with my own Let's Plays, when I beat a game and I watch, like, even Skies of Arcadia, I haven't played it since, like, college. So when I watched myself, like, trying to learn the controls in the beginning of the game, like, I'm getting impatient with myself. It's just like, because by the end of the game, I'm just going through battles, and I'm like, oh god, could we just hurry it up a little bit? It's weird.
A very short aside for Lotus's fans. My mother actually got mad at the Lotus Prince video because he was playing the game. She had played Guitaru Man before, and she'd actually beaten the game, and so I sent her the first video. And she was like, "This is your friend?" I thought he was the Prince of Games.
I beat the thing. I beat it on Master Mode as well.
Just saying.
Just really hard.
You redeemed yourself by the end of the Let's Play, because that is not an easy thing to do. To beat the game on Master Mode.
That game is really hard.
No, that game is rough.
Like, that's hard.
Dude, the Sandbone Trio on Master Mode is just like, I tried that for like over an hour. It was so hard.
A great game,
and the second level, the
hard
UFO, was crazy hard on Master Mode. I had an easier time on the final boss, and that was not easy. But yeah, so anyway, Skies of Arcadia, finished editing, just feels good, man. It's like 52 episodes, some of which were an hour and a half to several hours worth of content that I had to pare down to under an hour. So, like, let's get all this grinding out of the way. So it always feels a little good to see this gigantic installment of commentary, less grinding, and I'm like, I could just cut this, like, except for where I get a unique item or something. It's like, yes. The only thing is, though, I will also, if I'm ever looking for discoveries or something, I'm just gonna, like, pan over footage of me getting visibly frustrated when I enter, like, the 16th random encounter before I find the damn discovery, and I'm like, I'm gonna be cutting that part out until I find the thing. So, yeah, when I was, like, searching around Yafutoma or searching around Ixotaka, I'm like, in post, I'm like, oh, this is not gonna be fun to edit. But it's done now!
When you were looking for, like, the wandering discoveries, did you record all of that and, like, put that into the final editing? Because some of the... Or did you just, like... did you just use the strategy where you just, like, sit in one place where you know that they cover?
For the wandering discoveries, unless I took really long, I would just show myself finding it. If it got to a point where it's like, and it ought to be around here, okay, there it is. But if it takes me insanely long, then I'll cut footage out. But for some of the wandering discoveries where they work on, like, a global timer with the game, there were some parts of the strategy guide that straight up said, like, go to this point on the map, face this direction, reset the game, load your file so its position will have reset, and go forward and you'll just encounter it on its way. I'm like, okay. I actually recorded me resetting the game because the capture continues at that point, so it was kind of just,
nice.
Here's a thing to do if you ever really, really wanted to. I found the more difficult discoveries to be some of the wandering ones, and also the invisible ones that didn't have some sort of conspicuous landmark, like the ones just in the middle of the air that are total bullshit, and you'd only ever find them if you're really paying attention to your compass, like, spinning. And you're not going to do that because there's too much ground to cover. Like, maybe if I'm going over land and I'm on top of a mountain, like, oh, that might have something, but there's some stuff that you just, like, will not find unless you scour every last inch, which no one feels like doing, or unless you're using a guide. And even with a guide, some of that stuff was hard. But it's done. I got myself the best ranking, so that was satisfying.
Oh, so is it Vysethebold?
That's like one of the worst rankings. That's like ranked like 3 or 4.
No, it's really good.
It's a piece of shit ranking. It's a piece of shit username.
No.
Yeah.
I hate to admit this, Vyse, but like we actually told your girlfriend where that came from, and the fact that there are like a lot of like really shitty rankings below Vysethebold, and she told us that she'd start calling you that.
Nice. Yeah, I think the worst one is like Vyse the Competent or something. It's like, I don't even know why you have a ranking at all at that point. It's like when Mo was talking about his boxing career on The Simpsons, and he's like, first I started as Kid Gorgeous, then Kid Presentable. It's like, Kid Presentable? Like, why would you even have that as a name at that point?
It's just funny because, like, I only call myself that because that's what I was at the time in the game, you know.
Oh, I thought it was because you just thought it was a really good sounding ranking, because it actually sounds like a good ranking. It's better than some of the later ones, like Vyse the Extravagant or whatever.
That's part of it. I was like totally in love with the game at the very beginning of it. So
okay.
Like, I was like, that was a cool ranking to me at the time. But I had no concept for how far I was into the game.
Oh, not at all. But yeah, I gotta say, like, Vyse the Legend is the best ranking, but a lot of rankings just sound better. Like Vyse the Hero.
The Bold sounds better.
Yeah, it does. And like Vyse the Hero and Vyse the like Sky Battle King Vyse. Like,
I can't call myself Vyse King of Pirates on a podcast.
Yeah, King of Rogues. Yeah,
that's kind of.
It's pretentious.
It's kind of fun,
like Prince. But also, real quick aside,
the artist formerly known as Lotus Prince.
Yeah, Mr. Ryu's made that art before. But real quick aside is this took forever to happen. But the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure anime, like other than the 2000, 2003, 2005 one. The new iteration of the anime, starting from Part 1, Phantom Blood, and going so far through Part 4, I expect a Part 5 to happen. But that whole set of anime, though, Part 1 started in 2012 in Japan, and it was released on Crunchyroll in America eventually. It might have been a couple years later, but we finally got not Blu-rays, irritatingly enough, but DVDs, which is something. But, you know, when you show an anime in HD and then it's like, here, DVD only, it's like, okay. But we got our DVDs in 2015. It took a while to make it to physical format in America. We got DVDs in 2015. But, you know...
Why even bother?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I want to buy JoJo stuff, but, like, this is an HD anime at this point. Like with the two
made in HD,
yeah, with the 2003 anime, it's standard def. You know, like that's what you get. So I'm happy to buy those DVDs. But this is an HD thing that they're just not releasing in physical HD format. I could watch it on Crunchyroll if I wanted to, but I want, you know, like a physical piece of swag. I very, very rarely buy anime. Like very rarely. I have to be really passionate about it. Like I've bought old school and new school Hellsing, Bacano, Afro Samurai, Slayers. That might be it off the top of my head. But I wanted to, and the old JoJo OVAs. But I wanted to buy the JoJo, but like the DVD just left a bad taste in my mouth. Well, they actually released the Blu-rays.
Kind of like the Nintendo Switch games.
What about them?
They leave a bad
oh yeah, but they actually released the JoJo Blu-rays for parts 1 and 2, Phantom Blood and Battle Tendency, this month, like 5 days ago, like August 8th. So, like, the listeners will be hearing this on August 15th, but, you know, August 8th is when they released the Blu-ray. So I finally got a copy of that, and just feels good, man. Like, finally got the physical swag. And like I pre-ordered like a collector's edition that comes with, you know, some extra cool stuff. So I'm pretty happy about that. It took long enough. You know, it's 5 years after it came out at all, 2 years after it came out in physical form in America. So finally, you know, they delivered. So I'm pretty happy about that. That was really it for the JoJo thing. I just wanted to mention that. I got a little bit further in Berserk Musou. At this point, I'm at the point in the manga where we met the witch, and Shirk teamed up with us, and we've already gotten Farnese and Serpico. I don't believe Farnese is going to be playable, because I don't think she ever really fights anyway, like in the manga. But Serpico sure as hell does, so he's playable now, and I kind of didn't expect this, but Shirk is playable as well. I mean, I know that she's capable of great destructive magic, but she doesn't really do that in the manga. You know, she's always there for magic support, and she did some in the tidal wave that one time, but she doesn't go around just fighting monsters, you know? But you can in the game, so that's just kind of interesting. Strangely, well, I guess only semi-strangely, but Isdoro is not playable. The kid with the little fire dagger. I guess he wouldn't have a screen clearing
basically
move.
Like Guts' protege.
Yeah, he's like the Guts wannabe, but like, yeah, I guess to be fair, he's not going to go running around butchering monsters, but then again, he could play as Judo, so I don't freaking know. He could throw his little knives at, you know, apostles and kill them, so I don't know, there are no rules. I think I might have mentioned already, you unlock Wheelz. Turns out his name actually is Wheelz, not Wilds, because I've heard, you know, the voice actor announce his moves like Wheelz Stomp and like stuff like that, so confirmed for Wheelz. And he's just interesting to play as, including Apostle form. So at the point in the game, I haven't played the level yet, but I'm about to enter the Clipoth, which is that magical forest where you encounter Slan. And I'm kind of hyped about that, because I played that in the PS2 game, and that was really interesting. I want to see if we still do the cannon to the chest, where she just disappears smiling, and it's just like, man, you didn't do any real harm to her in the slightest. Like, there's no way you're fighting the God Hand. Like, I don't know how Berserk's supposed to end ever, but okay. The last thing I want to bring up is just tonight I started, finally, because I wanted to take a break from it for a while, but I finally started The Witcher 2. So I'm only in the prologue, so I'm still at the point where the game's really easy, and it's just like, start off by fighting these enemies, because your castle's under attack, and they all go down in like 3 hits, but it's interesting. Now, The Witcher 2 was also released on the Xbox 360, and you can tell just by the controls. Like, I'm playing it on PC, I don't have a 360, so with high settings, the graphical output I think is better than the 360 offers, but the controls are definitely more controller-friendly. Like, a lot of stuff has been, I guess, boiled down to a more like efficient form. Like there's no longer System Shock 2 clicking and dragging all sorts of stuff in the inventory. Like, you can click and drag one thing to another, but you don't have a whole grid of like inventory sorting. It's really more, you have 2 pairs of boots, click and drag the one you want onto your body, you know, like that kind of thing. It's way simpler, and honestly, why not? Like, I mean, I'm okay with this. And you know, when it comes to making potions, it's just like, look, you have the recipe, just click the create button and it will make the potion you want, instead of clicking and dragging every little individual ingredient and it's like, it's an interesting mechanic, but just like, it helps me get the game going more quickly. And same goes for the combat. In The Witcher, in the original Witcher, you had 3 stances, like high, medium, and low, and high was heavy hits, medium was regular hits, and low was particularly quick hits. But it was almost a rock, paper, scissors thing, where like only one of the attack types would affect enemies at all, because they'd be ready to block the other kinds. And so there was all that. And so you'd have to press a button to switch stances. In The Witcher 2, it's so much easier. Just, we're not doing stances. Left click for a light hit, right click for a heavy hit. Nice and simple. And at least, I don't know about later enemies, but at least with the really early game enemies, you can hit them with either attack. It's just that the heavy hit swings more slowly, so get used to that. But like, fine with me, you know? Like, I got used to The Witcher 1's combat style, but this really is simpler and more efficient, so like, you're not going to hear a complaint from me. And by the way, I mentioned when I started The Witcher 1 that well, I was playing it in 2017, so the graphics had definitely aged by that point, but it looked good for the time. I gotta say, like, The Witcher 3 has been out for a while, but even looking at The Witcher 2, that game still looks gorgeous, even now. That game looks amazing. So, like, Witcher 3 is probably going to blow me away.
Each of the games has been at the pinnacle of testing PC systems.
No, it has, but I'm saying, like, Witcher 2 looks like it could have come out this year to me. So, Witcher 3, I don't even know what to expect. Witcher 2 looks freaking insane, and that game's last gen, you know? Like, it's just crazy.
What's also cool is the CG Project Red continued to support Witcher 2 for a very long time after it was released. They kept adding stuff. They kept improving the graphics, giving extra graphical options. So I'm sure some of that's coming into play.
That may be the case. Now, at this point, like I said, I'm still in the prologue, so I haven't gotten to, like, the real game yet, but so far I'm liking what I see. I can't really say much more than that, but it's definitely looking exciting. So that's my week. How about yours, Vyse?
Well, I mentioned last week that I had been playing. My roommate had been playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game for NES, and was really enjoying the fact that he had was getting a chance to be able to play it again because he remembered it from his childhood. And it's kind of funny because he got me back into playing old games again, and I only had one controller lying around for my AV Famicom, so I was able to actually go home to my parents' place and pick up an extra controller, and we started to play co-op.
Hey.
So it's great because I tend to know a lot of games, but don't really master many of them because, like, I go from game to game a lot. So he's like a master at playing Turtles 2 because it's the game he's all about right now.
Yeah.
So, like, he knows how you should approach each boss, and he's telling me, like, the timing of doing, like, the more powerful hit and all that stuff when you press A and B together. It has a specific timing. So, and he's also telling me strategies in which I need in order to get extra lives, because every 200 foot soldiers you get an extra life.
Yeah.
So he's telling me, oh no, don't attack the bad guys this way, because like you can hit objects at foot soldiers in the game, like you can hit back the manhole cover when they
throw it at you.
But it doesn't give you a point.
Oh.
So, like, it may kill the... it's also harder to do, and you may kill the foot soldier by doing so. However, you don't get the point, so you shouldn't do it if you're serious about playing the game.
That's kind of too bad, because it's fun, and it's very efficient for killing potentially even multiple bad guys at once.
Yeah, it should give you, like, 5 points for doing it, because it's a challenge to do it.
Yeah.
However, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So, you should avoid doing it.
Huh.
If you're in high level play, it's just kind of cool to play this game at a high level play because I never played it that way as a kid.
Yeah,
it was just always just playing it to play it, right?
Like so back in my day, I would always beat level 1 with barely any effort, and then get the crap kicked out of me in level 2.
Well, the funny thing is I think the hardest boss in the game besides Shredder. Is the second boss.
Yeah, Bebop. He's
Bebop.
Like, it's weird because he fights kind of similarly to Rocksteady, but he's just harder.
No, he's a pain in the ass. He's literally the hardest. He's literally the hardest boss before the final confrontation.
Jeez.
And even the final confrontation isn't nearly as annoying as fighting him.
Huh.
I might even make the argument that he might be the hardest boss in the game.
Yeah, I've beaten him exactly once.
But the thing is, you get to him, and you could probably beat him if you're starting to be good, but you lose a bunch of lives in doing so.
Yeah.
So you're ill-equipped for the rest of the game because of him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where I think you just need to figure out how to trick his AI.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the trick to him, is that he's the trickiest one to fool. So I think eventually we'll get it down, but we got all the way to the end of the game. We got to fighting Shredder and we lost.
Nice.
So,
that's still really impressive.
Yeah, we're doing really well, and with my setup, you know that I have like really nice speakers, and I have it all hooked up through an amplifier and all that stuff. So like playing a game like that with really great classic Konami music in a like an audio context that I've never heard it before is really great. We could just like crank up the volume on this NES game, that
especially
I've never
that first
heard
level
it like
theme
that.
is so good.
Like all Konami games in that era just were phenomenal. Just so like hearing it on my coming out of my receiver is just so fantastic. Really, really great. And you know, a game would never sound like that back when you were a kid because you had a crappy TV or you know, like nobody had an amplifier like that. Nobody had speakers that are as good as the ones right now.
Yeah.
So,
not to mention it was mono audio anyway.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Looking forward to having a couple more nights where we're just trying to blow off some steam from work and play that. Hopefully, maybe we'll even go on to the Manhattan Project after that.
Oh, that's the third one, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess pretty much the only other game I played this week, and we'll probably go into this more in reactive, but I played Enter the Gungeon, which is another one of these roguelite games that you know, kind of stemmed from the popularity of Binding of Isaac. But I tend to like Enter the Gungeon more for my tastes. It's more shooter oriented, and it's less punishing than Binding of Isaac. Binding of Isaac just kicks your ass constantly.
Yeah, the later levels are just like you're either ready for them or you're not. Yeah,
and the game I feel is more reliant on skill rather than luck.
Yeah, with
of course,
Isaac,
there is a
it's
luck
like
component.
Yeah, with Isaac, I would always reset a run until I got like a power up I could actually use.
Yeah, in Enter the Gungeon, I don't believe it's the case. Of course, you can end up not getting the better guns. Like certainly, certain guns will be better than others, but it's not nearly as skewed.
Yeah.
You know, because of your abilities. And I'll talk more about that later, but later on in the week. But I also have been watching a lot of film criticism YouTube videos because I've been kind of missing it. I don't really scratch that itch anymore because I'm not doing the presentations. And there's one channel that I really like. It's called Collative Learning, and it's by this guy named Rob Egger. He's a British film critic, and he has a lot of really great videos on Stanley Kubrick movies, which, you know, really is great for me. And he's done a few on Blade Runner and things like that, and he's recently and he always brings up really good stuff. And he's also done like a lot of really good research where he's actually like interviewed people having to do with the movies to figure out meanings behind certain things. And he's also gone to the Kubrick archive in I think it's in Britain, where Kubrick was living at the time he passed. So and it's like run by his family, and so like he's able to piece together what he thinks that Kubrick meant in certain things, some hidden meanings in his movies, and I really like that stuff. But he's starting to do analysis on movies I didn't even think to look at artistically, like as textual works. So the thing is, I really like doing film analysis, and it brings me a lot of joy. And I really like it, but I have, I guess I don't always, I don't always, it's not always turned on. A lot of times I'm passively watching movies, you know, it's just like anybody else, but I think, like, I only turn it on when I expect to use it, you know, use that ability. So like, I never really think to look at a movie a certain way unless I know it's that type of movie and I should be looking at it that way, if that makes sense. So like he pointed out a whole bunch of artistic stuff in recently in Total Recall and Death Wish 2. In particular, I thought Death Wish 2 was a really ballsy choice of his to study, and it's great. It's kind of like opened my eyes to that a lot of other movies probably have a lot of underlying themes in them that I'm just not thinking about.
Nope.
Or I'm not challenging myself to find. And the stuff that he brought up was fantastic. And I kind of didn't realize that Total Recall was also by Paul Van Herven.
Yeah.
Who's quickly turning into one of my favorite directors of all time, because I didn't really realize that he made a whole bunch of movies I already love.
And they're all like really satirical.
Yeah, so he for the audience's sake, he made Robocop and
Starship Troopers.
Which are two of my favorite action movies. I love those movies, and I love their commentary.
And once you learn that he is the director, well, that's the thing. Yeah, there are themes to unpack. And like Total Recall is surprisingly deep, because you see it and you're like, oh, it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. He's gonna shoot the guns and take out the bad guys. But there's a surprising amount going on in Total Recall.
Which makes me wonder. I've never really given this movie a chance because it's kind of a laughingstock.
Oh no, you really should. It's I showed Mr. Ryu.
I'm transitioning to another movie he made.
Okay.
He also made Showgirls, which is considered
by a
lot of people to be one of the worst movies of all time.
Oh wow!
And it might be the case where people just aren't getting it. In this case, I mean, like, I give the benefit of the doubt that even the most talented film director can make a dud, for sure. But it makes me think that it's probably on surface level it might be a dud, but it might also have plenty of commentary in it.
Yeah, I actually had
at least. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I had zero interest in Showgirls just because I didn't care about what it was about. But if it's a Verhoeven movie, like, that actually kind of gets me interested.
Yeah, so I'm the same way. It's like, why would I ever go back and watch the Jesse Spano Saved by the Bell nudie movie?
Yeah, right.
Like it was an NC-17 movie in an era where there barely were any.
Yeah.
So like, and now people kind of watch it as a cult movie. They, it's kind of like people get together and watch it because it's campy. And just like any other good bad movie, right? So that makes me think, well, Robocop and Starship Troopers have plenty of camp to them.
Yeah.
But that's part of why they're good. It's their silliness is actually the best part. It's when the social commentary is most overt. I feel. So it makes me think that movie might have some underlying stuff that people just aren't getting, or maybe he wasn't good at conveying, but they might be there.
That's the thing with Starship Troopers. I think more people got RoboCop than Starship Troopers. I myself had no idea that there was anything going on with Starship Troopers until way later. But with Starship Troopers, a lot of people
when I watched it during college, I was like, I saw it when I was a teenager, but then when I watched it again after I had been, like, taking classes, I was like, oh man, this movie is off the chain. It's great.
Yeah, because Starship Troopers was written off by everybody as a pretty alright, shallow action movie, which...
Not at all.
I mean, for its action, it kind of is, but like if you realize what it's doing with the action, like why it's happening and who the people are and what they turn into as the movie progresses, there's a definite, powerful message to be interpreted.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely leftist argument kind of shit. So
yeah,
and so is RoboCop for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's taking down corporate greed and corporate ruling over America and things like that. So,
also, Eric Foreman's dad as well. Yeah, dumbass.
Yeah, that's where his famous "bitches leave" comes from.
I mean that was an amusing line, but the one that always stuck in my head, it's not even because of what it was, but how he delivered it was, "Can you fly, Bobby?" It's like, oh shit.
I love Kirkwood Smith. Great stuff. But anyway, so I other than that, I am searching around for jobs. My role at my job recently changed, and I'm not like digging it. So I'm going to be putting in a lot of effort towards changing probably my career, because I'm a salesperson, and I've been a salesperson for a long time, and it doesn't agree with my sensibilities very much anymore. It serves its purpose, but I'm not. It's too inconsistent. The earnings are too inconsistent, and every sales job I ever had has devolved into the same goofy bullshit. So, and it doesn't matter what you're selling. It's the same job. So I'm starting to believe that I would rather be on the analysis end. So I think I'm going to go towards that as a goal. So, but I'll have more on that later. So why don't we do a question here?
Sure. So Sabrina Hengel says, now think of one thing which you think would have greatly benefited from being presented in a different type of medium, and why. For example, maybe Deadly Premonition could have been a movie because its controls are really bad. You know, maybe it would have been better to just watch it play out, because you kind of play that game for the scenes anyway, you know? So can you think of anything like that?
Well, I mean, Deadly Premonition is going to be a board game soon.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
So we have to wonder whether the dice will work.
Yeah, that game will actually be playable, I'm sure.
I'm sure it will. Which is, I mean, part of the charm of that game is that it's janky as shit.
Not to mention though, like I said, watching it like during the card game, I don't think you're gonna be able to hear like that just really just goofy ass dialogue like all the way through. Like with the guy who rhymes, like, so says Mr. Stewart. Like, that guy's... what?
I guess I have a couple examples of this, and I've said to you on a couple occasions that I have a couple games that I really like to watch, but I would never want to play.
Sure.
And one of them is, like, Rule of Rose. It's just, like,
I
not
agree.
a game I want to play.
I played it, and I'd rather watch it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of those games that probably is best served as a Let's Play, because the gameplay is terrible.
It's, I mean, like, it's kind of funny, because I did Let's Play the game this year, but a couple of years ago, I had done a Q&A on YouTube, and one viewer's question was, would you ever consider Let's Playing Rule of Rose? And at the time, I said no, because the game is just not fun, and really, I said that for one reason, and one reason only, and it's the second boss of the game, because fuck that boss so hard. Like, that boss took me about 20 minutes, like, successfully. And when I first played the game, I died on it several times. It's so frustrating. It's horrible. And the hitboxes are wonky, and it takes way too long to kill it, and there are so many times where it's in a position where you can't really hit it. Like, that one boss, like, the final boss was way easier. Like, that second boss was just a freaking disaster. And there are no invincibility, like, frames or anything. Like, if enemies combo you, then you're just kind of out of luck. Like, it's such a royal pain.
Yeah, and Weird Dreams is the other one I'm immediately thinking of. There's no way I want to play that game.
I can't get past the first screen. The first screen.
It's so
and I know what to do.
Play. It's so hard to play because of the controls and how specific you have to be. And
that game looks so cool too.
It has fantastic visual design, fantastic music, fantastic world, like a really great way of depicting a nightmare, and it has everything that I like and would like in a video game, except that it's unplayable.
By the way, it really. By the way, I think I mentioned. You know, Peanut Butter Gamer had he had done a video on Weird Dreams. He had somehow gotten a copy or was able to play it, and he did a whole thing where he had trouble for like minutes entering like just the cheat code for unlimited lives or something like that, because even the cheat code is finicky as hell. And like he was going through this whole thing where it's like, I can't enter it, and like Perry had seen that video and he asked me in like later, like, was that like a bit he was doing, or was that legit? Like, no, that's fucking legit. That game is impossible to do anything with. And by the way, one really cool thing about the game though is I think I might have mentioned this before, but yeah, the game soundtrack is great. But there's one track it uses that's not original. You know how some games, like some, especially older ones, use like classical music and stuff like that. Like a lot of really older games did. There's one part where you're in this garden, with the creepy little girl, and this music plays. I had never heard the music before at the time, but it turns out it was some classical piece. I just never knew. And when I have, at this point, my alarm on my clock radio, like, it's between two radio stations, so it's just loud, obnoxious noise to, like, get me out of bed faster. But at the time, like earlier, I had set it to like various classical music, and one morning, like, that track, not in MIDI form, like the real track came up, and I'm like, where have I heard this before? And then I remembered it was Weird Dreams, and it just kind of creeped me out a little bit. I'm just like just hearing it normally is just like, that's, man, the only thing I know about this track is that, like, scary little girl with a grin as big as her face with a freaking knife. I'm like, I don't need this in my head right now. I just woke up. So
yeah, getting back to the original question, both of those games are prime examples of things that I wish were OVAs or something of that degree, with similar, scenes and things like that, and music and all that. And I wish both of those weren't video games because, at this point I would rather just watch somebody play them. Because, and I get, there's a few of those too, like, Dark Seed's like that. Like, like, you don't want to play Dark Seed, like, fuck that game. I mean, come on, like, but it's great, fantastic visual design.
It's freaking H.R. Giger, like, of course it is.
So, like, I wish it had just been an animated movie, why didn't he just make an animated movie rather than a video game in that case?
Because the main character of that game was a real dude, and I think he, like, teaches at a university now, so you have that funny piece of trivia. Like, oh, Mike Dawson, weren't you in Darkseid? What? Yeah, that was me, alright, with my mediocre voice acting, because I'm not really a voice actor. Oh, cool.
How about you, OldManStompy? Do you have any examples?
Yeah, I kind of had an example in the same vein. It led me to think a little bit more about this question. So my first response was Xenogears as an example of a game, and I realized that I had something in common with both the original example and the ones that you gave, Vyse, in the sense that all of these are games where, like, the gameplay is largely superfluous, and
yeah.
And
well, you could say the same thing about Metal Gear, kind of. I mean, like,
Metal Gear already is a movie.
Well, but I mean, like, why not just cut all the video game out of it? Like,
yeah.
They kind of did that with Xenosaga. I think the first game you can get kind of like all the cutscenes as a DVD.
Well, not only that, but there's actually a proper anime series for the first game.
Really?
Yeah, they did an anime. It missed a couple things, and it combined a couple characters' identities, but an anime exists for the first game.
It's also been done. Hasn't it been done in some of the updated re-releases of the Metal Gear Solid games? Since you brought it up, I think MGS3 Subsistence had movie versions of MGS2, I want to say, and I think in 4 you could watch the first 3 games or like summaries of them. Yeah,
they I think 4 came with a DVD of all the basically a overview of all of the games on DVD.
Oh, that special edition of 4?
Yeah. Well, it came with a supplemental DVD you got for pre-ordering. So
that's what it was. Yeah, I got the regular version, so I just had the game.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, like, maybe another question to ask would be, like, can you think of something like a movie or a book that would be better as a game if they could implement in such a way? Like, because I feel like a lot of the answers to this question are going to fall into that kind of trap where there are games that are, like, legitimately unpleasant to play and you'd rather just watch them.
Well, I actually was going in a different direction. This is kind of cheating here, but lately I've been reading a book that Perry lent me called The Scarlet Gospels by Clive Barker. And that book is, I don't know how far into the future it is, but it's some kind of a sequel to Hellraiser. And I don't even mean the Hellbound Heart that the Hellraiser movie was based on. I think sort of a sequel to the Hellraiser movie, kind of, because it directly addresses, like, Pinhead, as opposed to, like, just various Cenobites that showed up in the Hellbound Heart. But the thing with that is, I wouldn't mind seeing, because the first Hellraiser movie just is an adaptation of the Hellbound Heart straight up. But the Hellraiser sequels, some of them are better than others, some of them outright suck. But I wouldn't mind seeing a bunch of those just also as books, because for two reasons. Number one, some of them just aren't very good. Like Hellraiser 3 is just not very good. And also, like, Hellraiser 2 has parts that are just really, like, they really vamp up the gore. Like, I liked Hellraiser 2. That's probably my last Hellraiser movie I saw that I really enjoyed. But some parts are gory to the point where it's just like, I have difficulty watching. At the same time, the books are so much worse in the gore department, but you don't actually see it, so it's more, like, fascinating than anything else. Like, the way Clive Barker paints some pictures, man. Like, the way he describes what's going on in the Scarlet Gospels, if I saw that in the movie, I'd probably have to, like, look away. But it's, like, it's really interesting to see as a book, so I wouldn't mind seeing the Hellraiser series continue as books, because there is, like, no limit to what you can do if you have a good enough descriptive language in the written form.
Here's the thing about that I think about books is, like, most movies, like, you have to turn on your active sensors to watch them actively. For the most part, it's a passive medium. You know, it's going on. You are paying attention. You're absorbing it, but it is happening and it's constantly going. It can be a very passive activity, and it's a passive activity for vast majority of people.
Yeah.
But when you're reading a book, you really can make yourself feel what's being described.
Yeah.
I feel like you see somebody get stabbed in the movie, you don't necessarily, like, think about how the stabbing feels, but
that's the thing. Yeah, with the book you have a little choice.
If you're reading it, you're like, the words are bringing you to the idea, right? So
yeah.
you're painting most of the picture in your head, and the words are a way of getting you to where you need to get.
And not only that, depending on the subject material, because this is the Hellraiser series we're talking about, like, there's some content in some of the books that just, like, wouldn't make the movies. Like there's no way we're putting this in a visual form. Like, we're not putting this in theaters.
But that's the point. Like, sometimes when you're watching something happen in a movie that's particularly, like, jarring or gory, it makes a big difference. In a book, you can tell yourself this isn't happening to a real person because all the imagery is inside your head, as opposed to watching it in a movie where you're seeing, like, the best interpretation that the movie maker can get of an actual person being stabbed or, like, shot in the eye or,
yeah,
you know, cut in the arm. And sometimes that's very visceral in a way that reading a book isn't, because you can also choose how much to distance yourself from the imagery, you know, when you're proceeding through the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I might also point out that this is for other sensations too. So, like, the descriptions that George R.R. Martin has of food, in his books, you know, in the Game of Thrones books, or Song of Ice and Fire, if you want to get technical with me.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to lust after that food a lot more than if you see it on the screen.
No, I actually remember that specifically. There was a part in, I want to say, the 5th book, but the 4th and 5th kind of overlap in terms of the timeline. But there was a part where they're focusing on Sir Barristan the Bold, and he's been in the show as well. But there's a part, I don't even remember the context, which actually serves the passage I'm thinking of all the better, because he can't remember his own context either. But, like, he was remembering some amazing meal he had eaten on, like, in Dorne or something. And, like, I don't remember what was happening with Barristan at the time in the book, and he, it said, couldn't remember what he ate for dinner yesterday. But that meal from, like, 15 years ago will always be in his head forever. And I was like, damn. Like, it was just really effective.
Yeah, so I think... I mean, we're getting further and further away from the question here, but I think, you know, these mediums are really good at specific things. So it's kind of funny because bringing this up makes me think about what I'm capable of. Like, I'm capable of writing. Like, I'd like to say that I write well, but I am the terrible drawer. I wish I could make a comic book, because what I want to make is I have a very visual idea of what I want to make, But the thing is, what I'm good at is writing. So I'm going to make it as a novel and just hope that somebody gets, from my descriptions, what I want it to look like. Yeah. Or an approximation of such. So it's kind of funny when you think about it that way. I've just been thinking about this lately, and more and more I really want to get going on writing the novel that I've always wanted to. I've been mulling it over for this one particular idea and this one particular story idea for a very, very long time. It's one of those things that I think about while I'm on my way to work every day. It's just one of those things.
And actually, speaking of comic books, one of the first things that comes to my mind is Deadpool, because the Deadpool movie did something that the comics can't do, which is when he cuts people up, you actually see the blood fly out of them and hit the walls and stuff like that, and like you get to see this stuff in motion, and it's like you get to appreciate that Deadpool really is a very violent character. Like, I mean, in the comic books, but the comic books are released to mainstream audiences, and they're not really rated R. So, like, the movie is just like, nope, here we go, this is violent. So the movie gets to convey that, but at the same time, there is stuff that the movie could never hope to do. Like, one of my favorite panels I've seen in a Deadpool comic is when both he and the guy he's attacking are both in dynamic poses where they're both jumping in the air, and they're both right in front of each other in the air, with both rapid-fire guns out in each hand, and they're both firing 1,000 shots, and Deadpool's like, you're not going to get me, and the other guy's like, yes, I will, and Deadpool's like, no, you won't, and the other guy's like, yes, I will, and they both have these really long text boxes. So Deadpool's just going, no, you won't, no, you won't, no, you won't, and it's like taking up half the page, and the other's going, yes, I will, and like this is all being conveyed in a single frame, and even if you had them speak that out loud in a movie, it just isn't the same. Like, this shit is all happening at the same time, and they're having this stupid, long-winded argument, I don't know, at Mach speed while firing at each other with machine guns, and yet the argument just takes longer than what they should be doing. It's just kind of funny for that reason, it's stuff like that.
So, like, I could see that happening in the movie, for example, like, if they put it into slow motion, like Bullet Time, and you had them talking to each other in real time, which creates, like, a juxtaposition, which is funny. And I guess you could also do it, like, in the game by, like, having him do the same QuickTime action over and over and over again. It would just get really tiring.
Yeah. But I actually could see that, but, just this giant block of text.
There's something about the dialogue taking up volume, though.
Yeah, it's just like, look at this. This is stupid.
Physical space.
But it's also like it's a joke about repetition, partially, and like there are ways to convey it. You can at least think about it. I'm not saying that they're not all different, but
no, I mean, they're each going to have their own nuance. Like, I mean, you could convey it really well, but just the fact that this giant text box from either character, as they're both in their like cool poses, is just kind of silly to me.
But this is getting further and further away from the topic. But I think it's also pointing out why I'm trying to think of something that would be better served as a book or something like that. I'm just trying to think to myself, like, what here would be better.
Maybe even some visual novels, if you want to just like. The ones that don't have any gameplay whatsoever, if you just want to read it and they can go into more detail than the games will have, perhaps.
I think I'm very surprised that the Harry Potter books haven't inspired an MMO yet. I feel like people would want to explore those areas, those physical areas, like they kind of do in the Islands of Adventure down in Universal Studios. The Harry Potter stuff. I think the descriptions of those places in the books and also elaborated upon in the movies would be a really fun place to explore in a video game format. And really, the video games that have come out for Harry Potter were way back when. They were for PS2 mostly.
Even PS1, I think.
And PS1 was the original first two games, I think.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So those games were based around like action scenes, right? They were
the Quidditch games.
Yeah. They weren't based upon exploring an area.
There was a little, but not really.
not what I'm thinking. I'm more like in an adventure game kind of context.
Yeah, not so much.
I want to go into every single store in Diagon Alley. Like that kind of thing. So I'm thinking that for this question, that would that would probably be the best answer that I can come up with at the moment. That I wish there was a physical space that I could explore, in the Harry Potter universe, and possibly like with other people as well. I think that's a really cool thing to do, because the descriptions of every single physical space in those books is exciting and fun and unique. Mm-hmm. So like going to Gringotts and all that stuff, it's just really cool. And that's part of the reason why the books are so good is descriptions of food. Again, like Tolkien was really good at that too. Descriptions of food and really and physical spaces are and why the physical spaces are the way they are and the context for them is really what makes these world building things good. Well, having a video game is the perfect medium to explore this kind of thing. Kind of like they did with Virtual Springfield back in the 90s.
I was thinking that. And even the Simpsons Road Rage game did a pretty good job of that at the time.
Yeah, and that's giving also a physical space, like a contiguous physical space to something that makes no sense physically.
Actually, no. Speaking of which, I think the South Park, not Stick of Truth. Yeah, the Stick of Truth, the video game was like the first proper. This is where a building is in relation to another building, like in South Park, like ever.
Yeah, that's another great example. So I think that's something that video games do particularly well. The other mediums are not, because you can't explore past what you're shown or given. Yeah. In those two mediums, you don't have any control over what you see in a movie. You don't have any control of where the characters are when you're reading. And same thing with a comic book. Comic book is the same way. But a video game, you can control where you go, where you see, and physical space. So I think that is a good example.
Sure. I would also go, in terms of moving to video games, I would also take like the Kamen Rider style shows or Voltron, like anything with a Monster of the Week format as a video game. I think I would actually prefer that. Maybe not so much now in the Netflix era where you can binge entire series, but the idea that you're waiting another week for an episode that largely from a narrative standpoint will be the same as the previous weeks with small details changed lends itself really well to a video game. It gets a little tiresome as a television show.
At least for Kamen Rider, there is a Musou for it.
Mm-hmm. I could imagine that that Treasure could make a really great game out of a Monster of the Week kind of show. Because each encounter could use different play mechanics.
Yeah, Mischief Makers was great at that.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking Fury right now.
Yeah,
because that game is a boss rush incarnate. Mm-hmm. So I just started playing that mostly because you gave me the soundtrack on vinyl. Yeah, which is fantastic, by the way.
Oh, it's so good.
And the game is really up my alley. I love those treasure-style boss rush games. Well, if you did that for, Power Rangers, Super Sentai, or Kamen Rider, or anything like that, Voltron, it would be so cool because it would be kind of like Punch-Out. You have a new big bad that you have to figure out the timing of things and what their weak do. That's perfect, and that's a really great example.
All right.
Yeah, that sounds
good. I think we covered that pretty well. We went off on a bunch of tangents, but I think pointing out what the mediums are good at is important for that question. So that was a good discussion. I really like that. Mm-hmm. So having said that, I think we'll wrap up for this week. We want to thank all of our fans that contributed questions. We're getting a little on the low side with questions.
Oh, no, not anymore, actually. I mean, we could still... We'll always welcome them, but I just updated our question list. We got a bunch more now.
Good. Yeah. Good. Well, keep it up, guys. I love exploring these topics. I really like enjoying it, the discussion here. So please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own on the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Thursdays on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as Vysethebold on Vysethebold. It's not a low ranking, I swear. On Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
And as for me, you could follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can communicate with me on my Twitter channel, @Lotus Prince, all one word. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my video releases a little early, getting in on exclusive live streams, and maybe even selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, then consider stopping by my Patreon, which is patreon.com/LotusPrince. Again, all one word.
And you can find me as OldManStompy on basically every major social network, media streaming site, and gaming network except for Steam. And you can find me on Final Fantasy XIV on the Ultros server as Ovis Aries, or as Pyro likes to call it, Ovaries.
Yeah.
You had to know that was coming.
Yeah, I kind of expected it.
No, I didn't. But now that's all I can think about when I look at my character name. So
it's like, oh god damn it, you warped my mind. All right, well, we'll catch everybody on Thursday. Thank you.
Until next time, everyone.
Cheers.